I'll invite my speakers. So I'm going to be moderating the panel, so I'm not going to introduce myself. And the speakers who I would like to invite, these are Yasen, Kiril, and Srebrin. Please come on stage. I'll introduce you while you're here. And please, the big investors, can you be a little bit quiet, please? Let's see. So I'll quickly go with a small introduction of each of these guys here. First, I'll go the way you said it. So Yasen is CDO of Bit Consulting. So he's also one of the co-founders of Bulgarian Bitcoin Association. And he's providing a lot of know-how in the Bitcoin as a technology, because Bitcoin is not only the payment and the commodity, or whatever you call it, but also a technology. Then we have Kiril, who is the CEO of BitLendingClub, and this is a company where you can lend Bitcoins. And I think this is the new way a bank is, because Bitcoin is decentralized. And when you put your money in the bank and you get commission on, it's not a commission, but whatever. It's upside on the fact that you keep them somewhere. And this is a similar thing, but it's decentralized by many people. And Sep is one of the big evangelists of Bitcoin in Bulgaria, I would say the region. He's one of the people who started in that area first, and many of your businesses accept Bitcoin now. So
all of them.
Yeah, all of them. So he's the founder of Grabo. For some of you who know, it's like the Bulgarian Groupon, and Groupon never came here. So tough competitor. So e-commerce businesses, and so basically he allows Bitcoin to be adopted by the economy, which is great. Let's try to be a bit more generalistic at the beginning of this panel. Many of the people here, 40%, according to my calculations, don't know what Bitcoin is. But so let's start a little bit more generalistic. What actually is Bitcoin? Not in terms of the basics, but what it is. Is it a currency? Is it a commodity? What sort of thing it is now? Whoever wants to start.
I might let me put my 2 cents. Oops. So it's a decentralized ledger system where no entity, individual, or group of people could control it for their own sake, just like governments control fiat money that we use today. The blockchain, that is the database, is the decentralized database around the world that securitizes the ownership of each unit. Whoever has the private key has the access to the units to send them wherever they want at the speed of light. And there's no opportunity for any entity to censor that, to control it at the border, to confiscate, to put lien on it, or anything. So that makes it very compelling for the internet age as a private property. That was actually the problem of the internet. The internet is great at copying, multiplying data, but it wasn't good at unique properties. Like, you could not verify that it was only you that could control specific units. So that's what Bitcoin promises you, is that if you have the private key, there's no other entity that could replicate it and pretty much dilute your ownership of it.
My take on, what you're gonna get is you're gonna get a lot of definitions from people. Everybody's got a definition for what Bitcoin is. Ultimately, what we heard here is kind of like the protocol definition of it. Bitcoin is 2 things. Bitcoin with a capital B, that's the protocol. It's the payment network that allows for people to transact with each other. Bitcoin with small b, that's the unit that allows each person to transact through the network. So what you get on the markets, what people hear on the markets is the price of Bitcoin with the small b. The price of Bitcoin with a capital B is what's actually really, really valuable. And that's what we're here to talk about, the Bitcoin with a capital B.
I think more or less that's a good definition for the beginning, but let's give the sense of to the audience. Why is it so important? Like, this technology, everybody says it's the new internet, but like, why is the new internet? What is the so important part of it, so people understand how crucial that is for our economy and the decentralization of world power, whatever you call it? Like, anything you might add here?
Yeah, I have some. I could talk for Bitcoins for ages. It's so deep in a philosophical way, in an economic, societal. To me, it's a property that would be very hard to confiscate. Let's say the government confiscates your savings through inflation without asking you. Another way is to stop the capital to leave the country, like they're doing right now in Ukraine or in many other countries. So if Bitcoin promises that if you put your labor into something, you could conserve it much more sustainably than, let's say, put it into fiat money. Because if you put your labor in exchange for fiat money, it's pretty much like working for paper, which is very easy to burn, lose, and paper is not so unique in the universe compared to gold, let's say, or even Bitcoin, which is much more rare compared to gold, because that's what the protocol promises, that there will be only 21 million units divisible by 100 million. So if you own one Bitcoin, it's like owning 1/21 millionth of a share in the protocol itself. And I could easily give expectations of Bitcoin rising to hundreds of thousands in the next 10 years.
That's good. Okay, so
Do you want to?
you want to add something?
Yeah, I mean, so
please go ahead.
So I mean, what we have is we've all heard, the basic problems that people have with fiat, and there's a central place that controls what the price of fiat is. There's no backing of fiat. There's no value beyond what people agree that the value should be. And ultimately, what you get on a piece of paper is the information that transfers value. So what Bitcoin does is it takes that model of transferring of information about value and puts it on the internet. What we have is if you take a simple banknote and if you hand it to somebody, they immediately know exactly how much value you've just given them. What Bitcoin allows people to do is to do the exact same thing without the need of paper. So when people look at, people make the comparison of Bitcoin being the internet, the new internet being the new thing, that's what they mean. They really mean like taking information which was previously only handed from person to person physically with the need of a third party and taking that completely off the physical world and putting it into the digital world and making it accessible to everybody that's got an internet connection.
Yasen, you want to add something? Oh.
Yeah, well, from a bank's perspective or from financial perspective, there's a big issue which everybody have a credit card or a debit card or a bank account. The fraud, the problem with the fraud. I mean, what usually banks are doing is if I have a credit card and someone stole my $500, for example, from my credit card, I'm going to the bank. And the bank is saying me, okay, shh, hush, I'll give you this $500, everything's go well. This is a big, big problem. The fraud is one of the major problems in the banking system. So
why
Bitcoin is pretty much impossible. With Bitcoin, it's pretty much impossible to steal coins like this.
So the stealing part, okay. The fraud is something I want to touch bases on because Bitcoin also is something which I would say inspire activity, which is less legitimate. But before that, so what we realize here is that we have something which is a much more modern payment infrastructure, which can bring money and value from point A to point B very easily, and it could become a currency. I have this analogy all the time that we are all dual citizens. We are citizens of two countries. One is our own country, the other one is the internet, and the internet just released its monetary system. But if it's a real monetary system, it will be based on transactions. And it's still not a currency, because it needs to become a currency. So what are the problems for it to become, because many people consider it as a commodity, they speculate and so on. And what are the issues for mass adoption? So it becomes something where people can say, okay, I can buy a pair of shoes with it, or to kind of have this basket value attached to it. So where do you see that, where do you see those issues?
I could confirm that Bitcoin is a currency, considering that we are actually accepting it as a payment system. So people on our website could exchange Bitcoins for real tangible stuff, like whatever it is, hotels, massage, food, you name it. And it's a very speedy transaction. Like, you could be on another, in Antarctica, and you could pay me in a second. There is no other system on Earth that could do that. And because of the decentralized database, you could be certain that when somebody transfers the bitcoins, nobody in between me and the end user take a cut or duplicate it in any way. So, and considering that it's so divisible, 100 million parts for one Bitcoin, even if there's not so many Bitcoins, like the cap is 21 million, right now it's about 13.5 million that are on circulation. The next will be produced in the next 100 and some years, so it's going to take some time. The fact that it's so limited makes it so highly scarce. And in the internet age, I mean, it makes all the sense in the world to use something like that instead of the credit card system envisioned back in the 50s, in the 60s. And it's very easy with the credit card system to be defrauded because of, you know, those numbers are so easy to spread around. And they go through too many middlemen. I mean, when you hand them in the restaurant and somebody could copy the data, with Bitcoins, that's pretty much out of the question.
Another thing is that the protocol was made to be used in a decentralized manner. And right now, what we all see is a lot of businesses, for example, exchanges, payment gateways, and etc., who are trying to centralize it. I mean, it's a bit of a tricky thing that if you try to centralize something which in its core it's decentralized, it should be pretty hard for your business to succeed. But I mean, maybe the first step will be trying to do more decentralized businesses and services.
Okay. Kiril, do you want to add something?
Yeah. So when it comes to looking at Bitcoin and posing the question, is it a currency? Is it a commodity? And how does the average user, the average person, use it in a meaningful way? A lot of people have what they do is they have kind of complaints about Bitcoin because of the price volatility, and what we see is the price of Bitcoin fluctuates a lot. It goes up, it goes down. It's probably the most volatile asset on the market right now. But the unique thing about Bitcoin is that, like we said, it's a protocol that's being used by everybody, and it's accessible to everybody. So if I can make a good analogy, it's like if you own a Bitcoin with a lowercase b, if you own Bitcoin with a lowercase b, right now, it's about the equivalent of let's say owning a very major domain back in like a very big domain that's currently being used. Each Bitcoin is kind of it's a share of ownership into the entire stock of everything that happens in the Bitcoin field. So so when we're looking at why each Bitcoin speculates, you have to consider the fact that Bitcoins speculate because people don't know how to value each unit yet. People don't know at what velocity money can go through that unit, and people don't know at what volume it can go through it. So there's a lot of speculation from people trying to figure out exactly what it's going to be. And as Bitcoin grows, there's a lot more people interested in owning each unit because that unit is, you know, if you hold something that's valuable now and a lot more people want to use it later, obviously it's going to get more expensive. So as Bitcoin becomes more and more popular, each unit becomes more expensive. And as kind of the liquidity in the market increases, the price is going to stabilize. So what we see right now is a low liquidity market which has units of transaction which can transfer a lot of value. And as people are finding out about Bitcoin and they're promoting it, the amount of value that can be transacted through each unit increases, thus the price of Bitcoin increases.
That's
so
good.
as we get more liquidity, the price of Bitcoin is going to stabilize.
Cool. And you mentioned a couple of things. Like, first of all, Seb mentioned it's already a currency because his business is accepted. So basically,
it's up to the market to decide if it's a currency or not.
Yeah, market will decide exactly.
Yeah,
So
voluntarily.
and Yasen touched base on this one, saying that there will be businesses built around that, which will help the adoption. So first of all, what are the sort of things that needs to be built? Like, there are two sides of that question. One is, what are the businesses which will help Bitcoin to be adopted? And the second thing is, what are the businesses that will be built because Bitcoin exists and they couldn't happen before Bitcoin, which will be helping the whole ecosystem of Bitcoin?
I could mention one of the greatest benefits of Bitcoin. With the current fiat system, especially online, it's very hard to do microtransactions. Let's say it's pretty much impossible, considering the fixed cost, to charge per reading a news, some issue of a magazine or whatever. So we have to prepay or pay in bulk and that sort of things. With Bitcoins, and because of its divisibility, now there will be a huge interest going on for charging per microtransactions. Even imagine reading an email. I mean, it's not that email is going to be charged per read, but I see huge opportunity for microtransactions online. And that's actually very beneficial for the marketplace, because all those people participating with whatever service they make up will be a lot more independent to sustain themselves through microtransactions, instead of having to go through the current payment processors, which could be very censoring, like they don't allow this or that. So that's kind of a limitation for the marketplace. And Bitcoin pretty much doesn't care about limitations or laws or regulations. It's backed by mathematics. Whoever participates has to trust mathematics. As long as you do that, you're fine to do whatever you want.
Okay.
So what we have in the Bitcoin space right now is we have consumers, users, the average Joes, which can't really take advantage of the technology because of the learning curve involved with it. So any startup that wants to succeed in the field is going to have to work on making Bitcoin more accessible to people. And we just came back from Bitcoin 2014, and a lot of the talk over there has been, about allowing people in underdeveloped countries in Africa and Southeast Asia and various places like that where they're underbanked. Bitcoin allows them to basically get banking. I mean, everybody pretty much in most portions of Africa, people can have access to the internet via their phone. I mean, they don't have infrastructure for anything else, but they have internet. Yeah. So what they do right now is they're not banked. They have mobile phones and they have internet. So the big question right now is, well, how do you get those people to start banking? And the easy way to answer that is Bitcoin allows them to do that. What we see in those areas of the world is that people are resorting to all kinds of different methods of transacting. They're using their cell phone credits as currency, and it's not they're forced to do that. They have no other option. So the companies that start making that interface a lot better for people to interact are going to be the ones that are going to be successful in the next 5 to 10 years, and I would say even 15 to 20, 100 years. So what other people are doing is, you ask about the unique things that can't be done right now with Bitcoin. That can't, the unique things that can't be done with fiat that can be done with Bitcoin. And I'm a little bit biased because of the products that we have. But a simple example would be if somebody buys hardware from somebody, and they take out a loan for it. And let's say a good example is, let's say somebody wants to operate a Bitcoin ATM. Yeah. They take out a loan, and now they owe, let's say, 7,000 euro for each ATM that they have. If they stop making payments for the loan that they've taken out, if they'd taken out the loan in fiat, there would be pretty much no way for the bank to stop them from just running away with the hardware. They would have to go chase them. They'd have to send people to stop them from taking the hardware. With Bitcoin, the awesome thing is that, let's say if that person does stop making payments on the hardware, what we can do as a lender is we can sign a transaction that goes into the Bitcoin protocol and shuts down the hardware, because the ATM is constantly scanning the hardware, and the manufacturer of the ATM can program it so it shuts down after it sees the transactions, which is telling it that this hardware hasn't been paid off. So the same technology can be placed in the cars, it can be placed in the houses. And let's say if you have locks to your house, you can sign a transaction and lock your house. You can sign a transaction and start your vehicle. So you can really use Bitcoin as a very, very kind of innovative way to interact with everything around you, as long as it's
Ясно,
connected to
може
the
ли само,
internet.
че се чува допълнителен глас? Благодаря.
So I mean, when we're talking about Bitcoin, the opportunities are endless. We're just starting to scratch at the surface of the opportunities that are coming up, and it's like an iceberg. We barely see the top of it now, but there's a massive, massive amount of opportunity below.
Cool.
Yeah.
Anything to add?
Well, from my perspective, from my point of view, the most valuable thing in the whole protocol and the whole system is the blockchain.
Yeah.
So what I think is that there will be a lot of services
Around the
built
blockchain.
on top of the blockchain and around the blockchain. Yeah.
Yeah, I was the other day, I was voting for the European Parliament, and I was thinking this could be decentralized voting system.
Yeah, absolutely.
For example,
Absolutely, yeah.
You could trust it much more than the current system.
Absolutely. Yeah, right, the stupid things. Okay, next question is, I see a lot of people moving in the audience, so it means that Bitcoin is still shady, you know? People are like, I don't trust this topic, I'll go out and eat some sandwich or something. So the next big topic, obviously, in that space is regulation, the whole infrastructure. Is it a replacement? Does it need to work with the existing governments, with everything, in order to become what it can become, at least initially? Maybe in the future it can become the de facto currency of the world. But like, what are the big challenges there? Also, there is a lot of shady activity happening with Bitcoin. Still, in many countries, it's used for, because it's an anonymous transaction and so on. And there are a lot of things around the government, not sure what to do with it and so on. And how we can, first of all, work together to make it more accessible. And what are the biggest challenges on that front? And we see that more and more people start trusting it. Like Richard Branson invested in Bitcoin. Index were like big funds, and PayPal thinks of introducing Bitcoin, and Bloomberg started covering the price of Bitcoin, and Overstock, which is huge in the e-commerce site, accepts Bitcoin, and so on and so on and so on and so on. So what are the ways to overcome these challenges and make it really what it could be?
You say it's used for shady stuff, but it's a very easy comparison compared to the toilet papers that we use these days. I mean, cash is used for the majority of crimes worldwide because it's much more untrackable than Bitcoin. With the blockchain, you pretty much have a trackable unit forever. It's very hard to say who owns what. It's kind of a public IBAN system. Like everybody has a bank account, but it's very hard to tie it to a personality. And it's also very easy to, if you need, to sort of obfuscate if somebody finds out that you're the owner. And with privacy, it's something very natural that comes with being a human being. I mean, I'm not sure I'll be happy somebody if I'm in a toilet and it has to be a transparent toilet for the government to see if I'm doing something wrong. So privacy is inherently important for the civilization to go ahead. Otherwise, I don't think creativity comes from publicity and transparency.
Or puppet master theory.
Yeah, I mean, what we have now is the government reversed the way things work naturally. I mean, the human has the right to be a private sovereign, and the government is supposedly to protect his physical being from a bigger attack or something. And now the government says, well, we need to see everything that you're doing shady or anything so that we could impose whatever regulation we'd like to centrally plan the economy, which is absolutely impossible long term. We saw that with the communist system. Now we're seeing that collapsing in the West as well, because there's so much regulation that just by getting born, you're born into a system of unlimited number of laws. So you're ruled by laws. And that's, at least to me, it's not natural.
Okay. You want to guys add something?
Yeah. When it comes to regulation, Bitcoin is inherently not regulatable.
Yeah.
You can't regulate it. It's unregulable.
You have to regulate mathematics. I don't know how you do that.
So it's regulated by nature.
Right. So what you have is, at the end of the day, what regulations are for is for people, not for protocols.
For control, yeah.
Right. So what you get with Bitcoin is, it's not necessarily that Bitcoin is going to kind of allow people to do things that are completely lawless, right? That's not going to happen. I mean, people are still going to have to abide by laws. But when it comes to regulation, Bitcoin fits within the regulation quite well already. I mean, we've seen in the States, it's being treated as a property.
Yeah.
So
It's a currency in Bulgaria,
Yep.
actually.
in Bulgaria, now it's currency.
Yeah.
I
I think they said it's like a currency or something.
I thought it was a property as well, but again, that's the mystery.
Bulgaria
right?
gets it.
Each country gets to kind of tell its citizens how they can operate with Bitcoin, and people are going to abide by the laws for the most part, and there's some people that are not going to abide by the laws, but the government can't really stop that. What they can do is they can enact regulation that is going to facilitate the growth of businesses. Because that's ultimately what this is kind of, I think that, I mean, to me, that's ultimately what it's about. And whether or not Bitcoin kind of allows people to completely sidestep government is also irrelevant, because it doesn't, when you're looking at regulation, right, you're thinking it's going to protect people from the bad guys out there. It's going to protect people from the bad guys, and it really doesn't do that. It really just protects a select few from
oligarchy. You have this
yeah,
one.
from yeah. I mean, I didn't want to go with that extreme, but but it is that's what it is.
Let's stay less political, but yeah, I know what you mean.
So when it comes to regulation, it's always a fine balance, right? Like, people want to be protected from fraud. They want to be protected from all kinds of misbehavior out there. What we need ultimately is a good contract system, because every free person out there deserves the ability to create a contract between any other free person and have it enforced. So the major things that we want to see is we want to see the ability of people to interact with each other in a framework which can resolve problems.
Yes, if you want to add something, and I'll ask the audience for some questions. It's a very interesting panel, and I'm happy that those of you who stayed are the early adopters, as we say. The other ones will hear about it next year.
Well,
Okay.
he said that everybody has a right to a forceful contract once you do that. The problem with the current system is that it uses too much violence in the society, which is not sustainable.
Yeah.
So with Bitcoin, let's say if I make a
Violence,
contract
you
with
mean
you,
because of the fact that you can always print money and put them in practice for whatever reasons you want
violence
to do?
in many ways, yeah. It just, we're supposedly living in a law-abiding society, but most laws are pretty much made up opinions of people backed by guns. So Bitcoin allows you to transact with somebody, make a contract, and if you fail to fulfill whatever obligations you have, the marketplace will put a bad mark on you. So if I investigate whom I'm going to transact with, there will be marketplaces for your online reputation as a human being, if you will. So I'm going to decide if it's risky, how much I'm going to charge more for the risk I'm taking to transact with you. So the ultimate enforcer of contracts will be reputations online, not the government.
Cool. Guys, please go ahead with some questions. I think it's one of the... there is a girl with a microphone somewhere. Yes, here she is. Very diligent. Bravo.
Hi. You talk till now mainly for Bitcoin, but what do you think of the future of the other type of cryptocurrency? There is a couple of hundreds type of cryptocurrency. What is your prediction? And one hypothetical question, do you afraid if someday the majority of bank start to invade in the Bitcoin, in the cryptocurrency system, and will try to put a head on this free Bitcoin and cryptocurrency society?
That's a very good question, because we forgot about everything else right there.
You mean those banks which are actually making a profit from transactions when they sell Bitcoins, buy Bitcoins? through their accounts.
Or
I
rather
mean,
building maybe, did you ask maybe building their own Bitcoin sort of protocols and like their own transactional cryptocurrencies?
I mean,
Okay.
that's already happening, actually.
Yeah?
There are a lot of banks, one in Germany, Fedoro,
Yeah.
another one in Holland. Banks will be forced to accept Bitcoins. They will not have a chance to compete with it long term. It's the meaning of creative destruction. Once innovation comes along, you cannot take it back.
I mean, that's the thing. Bitcoin is not so much about. You mentioned cryptocurrency in general, and there's very large numbers of cryptocurrencies out there. But what that really tells people is that it's not about Bitcoin itself. It's not about Bitcoin. It's not about Litecoin. It's not about all the other cryptocurrency. It's about the idea.
Yeah.
So it's the
Transparency.
idea, right? Once you tell people, once you show people that there isn't a way for them to transact with each other in a transparent, decentralized way, there's no way to take back that idea. It's just like showing them the car back in the late 1800s. When people saw the car, they knew that the horse was obsolete. I mean, they knew it, right? When they saw the car, they're like, well, there's a horse, there's a car. Like, I know what I want. Like, so when people know when they see something disruptive and people like the idea, they don't care if it's a Ford, if it's a Mercedes, if it's a Lamborghini. Well, some people do care, but at the end of the day, it's the idea that they can get from point A to point B much faster than they can with a horse. And with much less energy and with much less care. I mean, nobody cares about their car. They leave it outside. You know, horses used to live in people's houses, you know, especially the high, the expensive ones. So when people see technology that's really breakthrough, they know, they recognize it. And that idea is already out there. There's no taking it back. It doesn't matter if it's going to be Bitcoin, if it's going to be Litecoin. People are going to find a way to transact with each other in a decentralized manner.
Yeah, you mentioned the car and the horse. I'll give you an example. 100 years ago, when the Germans imported their first cars in England, the government in England resisted the innovation. A little bit more than 100 years, 120 or 40. So they decided to intervene, to help, and enacted a law that says, okay, you could have your own car, but you always need a carriage guy to protect the consumers around, or the physical human beings walking around. It's like to stop the acceleration of innovation through laws.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what Bitcoin does long term pretty much unites the world in a marketplace. I mean, we're going to have different cultures, like, Arabian, European, whatever it is. But nation states could have a huge problem because they only got so big in the last 100 years after the two big wars and the invasion of fiat money into the system. So now we're going backwards into decentralizing everything that we do. Instead of entrusting yourself to be ruled by central planners, I mean, you have to be involved much more in the marketplace.
Cool.
And I think
One more for the
we probably
cryptocurrency.
have another question or two, and then if you want to be quick and to give the next one. Yeah, please.
I wanted to mention something for the cryptocurrencies. I mean, if you think of all those bunch of different cryptos, they're pretty much built on top of the Bitcoin idea, on the idea of decentralized protocol, which the units will be mined and etc. And there are some differences. I mean, but it's kind of the same thing.
so.
Well, there's small differences, like the speed of transactions for confirmation.
Exactly.
Like if you
But
transact,
they're
you need a
operational rather differences.
yeah, they're more like
The idea stays
the idea-
specific.
the idea-
The fundamental of the idea is there.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's what we are actually betting on, not Bitcoin. It's just we
And
use the
of
name
course.
Bitcoin for it.
And the second
Exactly.
part of the question, actually, the second part of the question was what's going to happen is if banks try to kind of intervene in the space. And the question that I have back is, at what point are they going to do that? Because we've seen Bitcoin grow really, really fast. We've seen Bitcoin just surpass
PayPal transactions recently.
well, they're
Almost,
pretty close.
yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty
Almost,
close
yeah.
to taking over PayPal. PayPal has been around since like the 1990s, in the late 2000s.
Yeah, 2000.
2000. So they've been around since 2000, and the volume of transactions that that PayPal currently does, it's about $350 million a day. Bitcoin is about $300 million worth of transactions
already
a day. So we're seeing
Right, to blow it away. I mean,
and we're seeing Bitcoin
no-brainer.
get really close to passing what PayPal is doing as a transaction volume. So at what point are they going to notice Bitcoin? Because they obviously haven't stopped it yet, and it's as big as PayPal. So at what point are they going to step in and say, "Hey, stop it"? And who are they going to tell to stop it? There's no central place where they can intervene and kind of enforce that.
I'll get a final question because we're just running on time, but it's super interesting
just
topic.
a quick one.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on the Bitcoin transactions and the way of accounting them for corporations? Because
Accounting
sooner
for
or later
corporations, that's
you have to
interesting one.
account it, and if it get also from the personal usage.
Yeah, it's sort of easy, I would say. You could sign up for services like BitPay or Coinbase that convert your Bitcoin into toilet paper, and then they send it to your bank account, and then it's pretty easy to account it for in whatever book your government requires. So.
And the other thing is that each transaction that you're involved with is recorded in the blockchain. So if you ever needed to
An audit.
to audit,
Very
yes.
easy. Yeah.
If you ever needed to audit your transactions, you can do it easily. And not only can you do it easily, but it doesn't matter where in the world you are, you can always audit your transactions as long as you have an internet connection and you have access to your wallet.
So you're right, like it's not only accountable system, but it's also traceable everywhere, like it's a transparent system.
It's a great system for governments that are fair with their subjects.
Yeah.
But it will be a terrible system for governments that inflate away too much their currency. So we'll see.
Cool.
And then the other thing that we do is we, for a fact, have to report. We have to report income. So when we do report income, we always go to the exchange and get a printout sheet of all the transactions that we have. We go to the tax man and we tell him, hey, this is all the transactions that we've had. It's fair and square. We pay our fees, and then we're done.
Yeah. Okay, Mr. Belov has a question, and he is using an old system for SMS to tell me that. Very quick one, because we're really running out of
we
time,
at
so I'm
LAUNCHub
closing
are
that.
very bullish on Bitcoin.
Yeah, I wanted to say that
So
too.
whoever knows anyone that is working on Bitcoin, please tell him that we are bullish and we would love to invest in such company. One question, Todor, my partner says, owning Bitcoin is an index on the whole Bitcoin economy. Yes or no?
Yeah, definitely.
I couldn't.
Bitcoin is so for those that I mean.
Can you repeat the question just?
Yeah, I'll repeat the question. I think what they're asking is Bitcoin an index to the whole Bitcoin ecosystem? Each Bitcoin.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, to kind of clarify that for people don't understand this, and that when you hold a Bitcoin as a property, if you actually have it, what you actually have is an equal share in every single company that's building a Bitcoin business around it. So what you get is a direct index into the success of the startups. I think we've had a little talk before us about building an index on startups. Now, what you're holding with Bitcoin is not an index on failing startups. You're only holding an index on successful startups, because the failing startups, they just die, and the successful startups, they keep promoting Bitcoin as a currency. You directly profit from the creativity, from the creativity of all those startups and the way they're promoting it. And if you notice, Bitcoin has it's a multi-factor network effect. The first network effect is the people that hold Bitcoin. Those are going to be promoting it when they're buying stuff, when they're talking about their friends. The second thing you have is the businesses. The second thing you have is the businesses which are taking Bitcoin as a payment. The third thing you have is the miners, which are generating the Bitcoins. And the last and the most important thing are the businesses. These are the businesses that are going to keep kind of giving that feedback loop and kind of letting Bitcoin grow and become more and more part of our daily activity.
I think next DigitalK, we definitely open a Bitcoin sort of streamlining, like separate room, because super interesting topic, and we can talk more about that. And I think three of you will stay here. We can interact with people, tell more about it, and it's a super interesting topic. We took a little bit more time, so thank you guys for it. And
Thank you.
yeah.